You are listening to KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank, your partner in possible.
What's up, Chiefs Kingdom? Thanks for tuning in and spending part of your day with us here on this new episode of Outside the Trenches. I'm BJ Kissel, as always, joined by former K-State All-American, two-time Remington finalist for the best center in the country, and a Super Bowl champion with the New Orleans Saints back in 2009, Mr. Nick Leckey. Nick, how are we doing today?
I'm good. Happy whatever day it is before Christmas.
You always forget what day of the week it is in the week leading up to Christmas. But Nick joins us, and so does our fearless content manager at KC Sports Network, Mr. Tucker Franklin. We just broke the news for everybody. We talked about it for like last month and a half, but haven't put it out there yet. You got a promotion, buddy. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it's good to manage all this content. We got a lot of content, BJ. We were talking about before. You said something like we tweet a lot, and I was like, I think it's about 20 tweets a day, and it's all like promoting the content that we have throughout the network. You know, it's National Signing Day when we're recording this. We're gonna have a lot of college content coming out. We're gonna have all kinds of stuff from the college basketball gearing up. They're about to hit conference schedules, so lots of stuff going on there. Lots of stuff, obviously, on the Chiefs. We're hitting the home stretch of the season, getting into playoff time. So lots of good content, lots of good stuff going up.
I've got to react because, and this is not a college football show, but when the director of recruiting for Kansas football tweets out that the best players in Kansas play at Kansas, that says a K-Staters, two K-Staters, and a guy who hates K-State because he roots for everyone who plays against them in Tucker.
And loses.
I took it personally, and I'm invested, but not at the level that I should be annoyed about something like that. But it did kind of annoy me because Avery Johnson is going to K-State. But anyway, guys, let's get Nick. I want to get your thoughts on the Chiefs and Texans game. Running back, you've been clamoring for the running game to get going. It was a running back that made all the plays, but it was basically out of the pass and screen game with Jerick McKinnon. What were your thoughts on the Chiefs win over the Texans?
I liked it. It's remember we talked about win differently, and that's what they did. Like I don't believe there was a Kelsey touchdown. Mahomes had the rare rushing touchdown. McKinnon with the walk-off rushing TD to win the game. And McKinnon got eight passes.
Something like that. He had 120 yards like second week in a row. He's had 250 yards and 4 touchdowns in 2 games against bad teams in which somebody had to step up and we didn't lose.
Yeah.
Like, that's the Jerick McKinnon stretch of the season.
I love it.
That's what you have to do. Everyone gets their chance to contribute, and you don't know when your number's going to be called that week. And he did it. Him and Pacheco, with the ground and pound and the air and the ground attack. It was cool to see. It was really cool to see. And I like the benching. I didn't know if it was intentional or not, but I really like the benching just because it shows you that he's growing to be a part of this offense for the Chiefs, and they've expected him to. And usually the Chiefs, they'll throw a route to someone, they drop it, they go right back to him. But they're like, no, man, you missed a blitz, you fumbled it, we're going to sit you, which means he's held to a higher degree of the Chiefs offense, which is cool to see. Yeah. What'd you guys see?
That fumble was super weird. When you talk about the Isaiah Pacheco fumble, he had both hands on the ball, and the guy just ran into him and it squirted out the bottom. When I watched it, I was just like, that just doesn't seem right.
Until I saw the 9th replay, I never saw the ball get fumbled. It was only when they showed it from behind that you saw the ball fall. Every other time they showed a replay, I'm like, where was the fumble? Like, where did the ball go down? And
it just dropped straight down to it. There wasn't any wild motion. It was just a weird game, and that was a weird play. Yeah. Not only you had penalties that were timely in the Texans' favor on the defensive side of the ball, just untimely penalties everywhere. Penalties are always not good. But just they come in the most inopportune times, and you still find a way to win. I think, BJ, you've talked about this a lot. They had 500 yards of offense, and we're sitting
quietly.
A quiet 500-yard game of offense. Patrick Mahomes had a career day for a lot of quarterbacks. I think Matt Miller said that on Monday's KCS Update, and then we're just like, that's Patrick Mahomes. It's wild.
I've talked about it on every platform I've had this week, talked about it on a pregame that we've recorded for 101 The Fox, that how entitled are we as fans that we had 500 yards of offense, only gave up 223 yards on defense. And yet after the game, and for rightfully so, and because of penalties and turnovers, I understand that the score was close. He went into overtime against a bad football team. Although biggest takeaway I had from that game is that those guys play for Lovie Smith. that the Texans, like those guys played hard for that dude at a time in their season, which you wouldn't really blame them for being pretty lifeless and all those things that just naturally would come up in a season in which guys they're not playing for anything at that level. A lot of young guys on that team. I talked about Brett Coleman earlier. Check out that KCSN update. He's like, you have a lot of young guys on that team. They've drafted well. You have a lot of guys from schools and colleges that have always been successful. They're not used to not winning. And again, they're playing hard for their head coach and Lovie Smith. So shout out to them. But yeah, the entitlement of it should be easier for the Chiefs just to go out and dominate every week in the NFL. When again, you step back and you look, they're 11-3, tied for the best record. You beat a bad team barely. I understand there's issues with the team, but you had 500 yards of offense and only 223 given up on defense. It wasn't as bad as even I felt post-game. That was one of the weirdest post-game shows we've ever had, Tucker, because I had no idea how to feel. It's like, I want to celebrate the division, but man, like we got to get better. Like this is not going to be good enough against a good team. I just don't think they're going to play like that in the playoffs.
Vibes were off for sure. Their vibes were not where they should be after a winning game, especially that game going into overtime and the way it went into overtime of just like kind of the inevitability, the predictability of how that last drive was going to go, that the Chiefs were going to get a couple big plays to keep that drive going. They were going to get in field goal range and kind of stall out and kind of play for the field goal. You could kind of feel that the whole time. And I think that was kind of frustrating about it as well. There's a lot of stuff going on when it comes to the special teams and what's going on with this team. I think turnovers is a big thing you talk about too. I think they were -5 in turnover differential in this game, and they've won both games that they've had a -5 turnover differential in this year. Which
what
does
that mean? Is that mean they
Patrick Mahomes the MVP?
They lost it more. They lost the ball more.
Yeah. So they gave the ball away 5 times, and the other team didn't give the ball away. Basically,
right?
Yeah.
They have 5 more giveaways than they did takeaways, and like our turnover differential.
Yeah.
I don't know this off the top of my head. I'm sure somebody in the YouTube comments will let us know, but like we're going to have probably the worst turnover differential of a team that's going to go in potentially as a number 1 seed, probably in NFL history.
Wild. That's crazy.
The fact that they're overcoming, they're so bad on turnovers this year. They've given it away. They haven't taken it away enough on defense, but
and on the road.
Yeah.
Losing the turnover differential and you're on the road. That's usually an L. That's usually a big L.
Looking at the list here, the Chiefs are towards the bottom.
They were
the
-5.
Saints were -12 on the year. The Colts are minus. I got an ad pop up. They're -12 as well, but the Chiefs are third with I believe -9 on the season. So it's certainly not. It's hard to say this late in the season that this is just an anomaly, right? If you are that deep in the turnover margin. The Chiefs don't get turnovers and they turn the ball over. Now their turnovers have been weird, like the Juju fumble on forward progress, but then was reviewed and that one was odd. And they said it was a clear recovery for the Texans, which I don't necessarily agree that there was a clear recovery there because, Juju had the ball in his hand and there was a guy on top of him and he let the ball go and was like, okay, I'm probably down now. And then they said the Texans recovered it. That was weird. Obviously the Pacheco fumble was an odd one, but there's just like some too. It's not like Patrick Mahomes is being careless with the football. I don't think that the Chiefs are being like careless with the football. But it's hard to say that they're not if they're -9 in turnover differential. It's a weird spot to be in. BJ, kind of to your point, like with the postgame show, just a very weird spot to kind of look at this team and be like, yeah, they put up 500 yards of offense. They also turned the ball over 5 times, and they still won. And it's just like, well, what to believe about this team is just kind of difficult.
You just got to win, but you got to win differently, right? You always have to win differently. And there's always going to be those games. You could steamroll everybody the whole season, but there always be those games that try you as a team. And then that's why I said, right before last week's episode, this is the time of year when, especially playing these opponents where it's tough to get up to. I'm not going to lie to you. A noon game is versus a crappy opponent is tough to get up for. It's tough to watch that extra film on Wednesday. It's tough to, watch extra film on Thursday because like, God, these guys are terrible.
Cool.
Like this is some bad football right here you're watching, right?
So let's talk about a game on Saturday, a day early at noon against, I would say they're a bad football team. They're playing poorly right now, the Seattle Seahawks. As far as win-loss, they've lost 4 of their last 5. Their one win was against the Rams, which is a pretty depleted team right now for a team coming back. I think the first team since whenever that isn't going to make the playoffs the year after winning the Super Bowl. Like that, they're They're done. They're very, very done. But all of those games have been within one possession. So they're not getting blown out in these games. And so I very much expect this to be a close game. And the fact that it's going to be like negative wind chill. Like this is going to be a brutal game to get up for, because at this point, obviously you want to win. If you don't end up with the 1 seed, you still want a 2 seed and all of that. They already won the division. They're going up against an NFC West opponent, an old AFC West opponent from back in the day. For anybody's old enough to remember that, Tucker, you weren't even born yet.
Kingdom.
So, before we talk about that matchup, Nick, I do want to get your thoughts, because Dustin Colquitt opened this up. And Dustin Colquitt, make sure you check out the interview that he did with Jeff Allen and Mike DeVito on One-on-One, because Dustin Colquitt had made some headlines this week talking about the holds and just that it's not necessarily all Harrison Butker's fault. I'm curious your thoughts. I didn't take it as he was calling out Tommy Townsend as much as he was explaining that it's not all Harrison, that there's other aspects of this that have to be better. And that way kind of educating fans to be like, look a little bit closer than just quickly blaming everything on a kicker, which I have been guilty of. Everybody has been guilty of so far this year, blaming a lot of this on Butker, who hadn't said one word about Tommy Townsend and the holes. If this has been an issue, we haven't heard one peep out of Harrison Butker pointing a finger at anybody else. Just curious your thoughts on specifically what he said, and just the idea of a former player, but somebody who's still friends with guys in that locker room, a legend in a Kansas City Chiefs uniform, and Dustin Colquitt coming out and like I said, just kind of educating us on, hey, there could be some other stuff. There is some other stuff going on here.
I think it's cool because I know a little bit about holding just from what I've heard, like when I was playing and how you do certain things like that. But I think that the main thing that he emphasized was that there is angles to the ball and how you hold and where you put the laces, and outside of laces out, Finkel, but I think it was cool that he put that out there. And it's kind of stinks that if you're a young guy, no offense to your boy Tucker, but if you're not listening to a person who literally did your job for like 12, 15 years and has brothers who've done that job for like 12 years, you're like the punting family, right? You're like the Manning of punting. So it's like, you got to listen. And it's like, to see it fall on deaf ears, that's disheartening. It's really disheartening, because it's like, you don't know it all, especially as a newer player, you don't know it all. And that's sad to hear.
Right. I do think Tommy does have some relationship with the Colquitts prior to even coming to Kansas City. He went to Tennessee for, I think, 2 years before transferring to Florida, and he had met Dustin, or I can't remember the other Colquitts.
Britain.
But yeah, and because they're around Tennessee all the time. They do camps up there. So I think they're from Knoxville. So I think he'd been associated with Dustin a little bit before them. But yeah, it is something that I know a lot of people have tweeted out clips of all of Harrison Butker's misses and are like now dissecting the angle of the ball, where the laces are.
Perfect. It's educating fans on it's not a problem. The only one who crossed the line when Tommy said, like, we don't listen to people on the outside who don't know what they're talking about. It's like, whoa.
Yeah.
Just because he said you're a phenomenal punter, but this has not been good, it's okay for somebody to come out and say this isn't good enough, especially somebody that has done it as long as Dustin Colquitt. I did not take it as disrespectful that something has been going very poorly. Dustin obviously is friends with Harrison Butker. They have a relation. I don't know if he talked to him. I don't know if that's where this is coming from, but the entire city is clamoring down on Harrison Butker for months about how bad he's been this year. And if there is truth to Tommy struggling, Tommy hasn't stepped up and said a word of, it's not on Harrison. Like, I need to do a better job with what I've been doing. He didn't say that, but as soon as anybody shine the lights on him, he goes and calls out Dustin Colquitt. It's like, that's a bad look, especially when your teammate hasn't said a word about you. To come out and do it that way, that makes it look even worse, in my opinion. And that's where I'm like Team Colquitt, in that he wasn't disrespectful about it. He came out and educated fans who needed to know more about what they were talking about.
It is. And remember too, if you're kicking a field goal, the offense has failed. So you always got to remember that. And there's always, it's a team sport, and surely he didn't do his job, but at the same time, it's like, I'm almost grateful that you get these out of the way now to sort of reemphasize how you kick. Cause you never want to have a kicker who's, gone perfect all year and then misses in the playoffs. That's more pressure, I think, if you're perfect. So the fact he's inconsistent, then it's like, okay, maybe you'll get a little bit more gutsier on your fourth down calls, especially in the playoffs, which could be a good thing.
That was the tinfoil hat conspiracy around why the Chiefs wanted to play for the field goal at the end of the game, was to just try to get Harrison Butker right, was to give him a little bit more confidence as and that's kind of why they've played for some more field goals than we've seen them play for maybe in years past, just to kind of get his confidence back and get that moving. But I do think, you look at some of these clips and the ball is pulled towards him, pulled towards Tommy. The laces aren't directly out; they're facing the sideline, and there are some inconsistencies there with the hold. And I think I saw somebody even bring up Tommy's positioning behind James Winchester, of like, because they're usually not directly right behind, and I think that sometimes throws off a little bit the long snap, as if they are directly behind. You like a little off kilter a little bit, and there's just a lot of small things that go into this too. I know James Winchester has it down of how many rotations he can get it to, where Tommy can get it and place it down and not really worry about spinning it. So that's all. It's all very small, minute things that make a big difference.
I had a really long conversation with Kendall Gaiman, and his name's Jeb Putzier, who spent like 8 years in the league. He was a tight end, but he was a backup holder, backup long snapper. And he said it's actually not difficult at all to get the rotations to where you just catch and set the ball down. That part of it that from fans on the outside might think be more tricky. Like the holder should just catch and set it down and make sure it's tilted the right way. But as far as like the rotations and all that, shouldn't be a problem. But I just laugh because if you have been to like a training camp practice or a Chiefs practice, that's all these three guys really, like they punt, they do their stuff. And the rest of the time they're just practicing this stuff. So James Winchester and Tommy, if he's not lining up in the same spot every time, they're failing miserably at their jobs. They should absolutely be on the same page. And I also will laugh at the conspiracy theory that Andy Reid's not trying to score touchdowns to set up Harrison Butker. I don't believe that at all. But that being said, this part of the game and this part of the Chiefs, it obviously has to get better. And again, I don't blame Dustin Colquitt for coming out and starting dialogue for fans to be a little more educated about this particular very niche aspect of the game, but obviously one that nobody had brought this up until Dustin mentioned it, that the laces are off and all these kinds of things. And again, it's just one more thing for fans on the outside to be educated about. And again, if it's all true and there has been a struggle, I have different thoughts on Harrison Butker, not on how he's performing his job, but just as a person to not even allude to anyone else struggling or pointing a finger when he was getting torn apart from the media and from all of us talking about how bad he struggled this year. So let's move forward, talk a little bit about the game upcoming. Tucker, I don't know what your blind nil segment is. Somebody raise their hand if their blind nil segment is about the game on Saturday. And then it could be a nice segue. Is anybody's segment about the game?
Yes.
All right, Nick, let's start with you. Again, this is our blind nil segment. Each one of us is bringing a topic that the other two do not know about. I just wanted to talk a little Chiefs Seahawks. So we wanted to see what we got here. But Nick, what do you got for us?
Hey, I got to tell you guys about our friends at Liquid Death. And by now, you guys already know that you might see some strange tall boys of beer in the bottled water section of your local stores. Well, it's not beer. It's actually mountain spring water from the Alps, and it's called Liquid Death. Why is the water called Liquid Death? Say it with me. It'll brutally murder your thirst. And their infinitely recycled tall boy cans are here helping to bring death to plastic bottles as well. They also donate 10% of their profits from every can sold to kill plastic pollution. I've got the severed lime flavor with me here. I also love the berry flavor. And also, just the straight still water is incredible. I like drinking the water out of the can. It makes you feel powerful, makes you feel authoritative. So here's what you got to do. Go to liquiddeath.com/KCSN to find their store locator tool, or you can go get Liquid Death at your local Target, Walmart, or 7-Eleven. Go check them out at liquiddeath.com/KCSN.
What with last week's 1-11-1 record, now 1-12-1, and then this week playing a 7-17. What are you guys' thoughts on just the win-loss record? Like, how do you, when you see that, what are your thoughts based off of that? Like, what do you research? What do you do? What's the, like, is this a good 7-7? Is it bad 7-7? Is it they've lost by a couple, this, that? What are your thoughts on a win-loss record? I know it determines seed.
I will look. My first one is, like, when I look at everybody talks about like the bad Seahawks team, you look and all their games are within one possession. So it fits within that margin of error that we always talk about. It's 5 to 7 plays in every NFL game. That's the difference between a win and a loss. Not that the Chiefs played well against the Texans. Obviously, there were a lot of mistakes that they made, and that margin is bigger against the team where you're so much more talented than the other team, but we still saw it. You can't turn the ball over twice and have 100 yards in penalties and still not have to make a couple of big plays in that game. Tucker, you were talking about before, not ever feeling like the Chiefs were going to lose. The only time I started to get really nervous is when the Texans had the ball in overtime and it was like kick a field goal, they win. And then my guy Frank Clark made a play because that's what Frank Clark does late in the game when he needs to.
He does. Indeed.
But yeah, I look at how close are the game. I look at point differential. How close are these games? How competitive are these teams? Because I'll never get it out of my head when I started covering the Chiefs for Arrowhead Pride back in the day. Those 4 years that Scott Pioli and then Todd Haley for 3.5 of them or 2.5 of them, however long he was here. Those are three of the four worst seasons in team history in terms of point differential. And I likened that to, this was the least competitive stretch of football in franchise history. The records could be what they are, but they were just getting smoked every week where the games weren't close. So I look at point differential, how close are the games? And then if they're close like that, maybe it's decision-making by the head coach. You say with Brandon Staley, like their record hasn't been great. The games have always been close, but the joke on him before this year was the fourth down decisions and some of the in-game decision-making. Look at Jeff Saturday last week, just getting torched and making all kinds of, like, it's not as easy as you think on the outside when you're in the moment to make those decisions. And I think Jeff Saturday is probably reminded that it is difficult to pay attention to the clock and game management and those kinds of things.
Yeah, the Jeff Saturday experience has not been very great. It started off really cool because they beat the Raiders. And then after that, it just kind of all gone downhill. He now named Nick Foles as their starting quarterback. I don't know if you guys saw that, but
No, I did not.
New starting quarterback in Indiana. But what I look at too is I like to look at the schedule, right? See what team they've played. The Seahawks also finished first in the NFC West last year, so they're playing a first place schedule. So they're playing teams that were supposed to be also very good teams, and obviously they had Russell Wilson last year, so they had a good quarterback, and I think Geno's played better than Russell Wilson did last year. So I think that they've got the quarterback to put him in. They've been playing a first place schedule. They've been playing these teams really close too. And another thing is injuries. Tyler Lockett broke his hand. He broke a bone in his hand somewhere, so he's probably not going to play. DK Metcalf is a dog, but man, he's dealing with injuries all the time. He's in and out of the lineup all the time. As a DK Metcalf fantasy owner, I can tell you that there's a lot of times where I got to pull him in and out of games. So I think that's kind of what I look at is first I think the injury report's kind of the one that I look at. If a team that you think going into the game was like, hey, that feels like this team's better than 7-7, I'm going to go check out that injury report and see who's playing, who's not playing. And then I look at the schedule because, last year they were a first place team. They're playing a first place schedule. They're playing teams that are supposed to be up at that same level as them. And they also had a huge roster renovation in the offseason and are still 7-7, which I think is a big win for the Seahawks.
Yeah, I agree. I like that. The reason I asked is just because, with Houston win, people are sort of discounting it. And it's like, just because you're a certain record, I don't think it guarantees the outcome of a game. You never know when you're going to get hot. Like, these guys are still playing for next year. And it's just funny to me how, and I just brought this up because I see people on Twitter like, these are very bad.
You people. I see you people on Twitter.
Absolutely.
You non-NFL playing minions.
No, ignorant people. It's like, we should have beat this team. It's like, there's no guarantees, man. No matter what your record is, there's no guarantees. And I look at the same thing that you guys do. I look at, even how their O-line's playing, and who's hurt. And I think it's fascinating. The win-loss doesn't determine the product you see on Saturday or Sunday either at the same time. It doesn't dictate anything on game day.
Give Chiefs Kingdom a break. It's been a hell of a week on social media for Chiefs fans. Between Dustin Colquitt, between bank robberies from super fans, like it is. I don't want to see my screen time this week when my phone says like you've been on your phone for 18 hours a day. It's like pardon my language, but like fuck off. There's a lot going on.
Right? There's so much content. That's a true super fan, though.
Listen, he loves the Chiefs so much that he needed to figure out a way to get to every game and wear a wolf suit when he did it. Yeah. Well, we'll save a special. Tucker, you got to take.
I do. I just think that's a commentary of how high these prices are in the NFL, and how high the prices are that you got to be going.
It's going to turn into a lawsuit against the NFL. Apparently, the guy sued Gillette Stadium because he slipped and fell a few years ago. So.
Yeah, sued the owner right for the top.
Unbelievable. And I got to go back to this because if you guys have watched The Departed, anybody out there listening or watching this has seen The Departed. I was talking with Kendall Gaiman about the Dustin Colquitt comments, and he was just kind of like, this stuff should stay in the locker room. And Dustin knows that. He shouldn't come out and say anything. I was like, no, I think it's good. And this is where I push back on Kendall. I go, I think it's good for fans to be well educated to where we don't, in the future, when there's missed field goals, now we'll know to look for these types of things. And I think fans should be educated in some way. And pardon my language, I got a note this week that I swore on the post-game show, and there were kids around, and I've got kids myself, so I'm about to swear. But it reminded me of the line that Mark Wahlberg said. He's like, my line on feds. And it's like, basically players' lines on fans is treat them like mushrooms, like feed them shit and keep them in the dark. Mm-hmm. It's like, don't tell them what's going on. They don't need to know anything that's going on. Treat them like mushrooms, feed them shit, keep them in the dark. It's like, I don't like that, but I reminded me of that line, and that's exactly what I thought of when Kendall's like, we don't have to tell you guys anything.
And the education is great, though. I think fans, we're getting smarter on Twitter because I see these people, there's still some idiots out there, don't get it twisted. But I saw people who are analyzing and like
Rob Banks in a wolf suit.
Yeah, that's pretty good analysis, right? Like that's pretty good. I can tell you watch the film and you don't just look at the box stats, right?
And the thing is, that's probably the conversations that are going on inside that room. It's not like they don't know if the laces are wrong or if the snaps, the rotation, whatever it is. It's their job to get it fixed, and that's what they do. So like this can't continue to be an issue. Right. So if this is still an issue, this is a work ethic conversation, which is a whole different story. Maybe why some of the stuff got out there is if it's not getting fixed because of other reasons, who knows? They do, and their job is to freaking fix it. I can tell you right now, everybody's eyes are going to be where those damn laces are this week. Anytime there's a field goal. So, Tucker, let's move on to your blind no. Nick, that was solid. That was a good one.
It was a good one. Mine is not necessarily, it's game adjacent. It's not game related because we talked about it's going to be cold in Kansas City. It's about to get nasty in Kansas City. The winter is coming. Winter is here. There's a white raven that just landed in Kansas City. I saw it. It is here. So I'm curious to what you guys, Nick, especially you playing in some cold weather, what would you do to keep warm? I know they talked a lot about on Monday Night Football, drinking chicken broth or bone broth or on the sidelines or just, or do you just tough it out?
No, listen, like either wear long sleeves or wear no sleeves and don't think about it. And then, those bench, the white benches are the most glorious things ever. And they got the little kickback doggy doors you put your heels in. And then, but the best, and you were doing that and you got the big stadium coat going over your shoulder pads. But the best is the little helmet heater behind you. That you can have just that, I'd be fine. Because the worst part about cold games in football is your helmet when it's ice cold and that thing won't flex to fit over, and then you're like guillotining your ears as you put it on, and your ears are frosted cold, and you're just whatever. And it's the most miserable feeling in the world is the way your helmet fits when you're dry and cold, and it's just tight. So the helmet heater is it's fantastic. So, but yeah, once you play it, you're good. You're in it, and you're like, whatever, we're doing it. Unless it's that cold and you're like, that's all you can think about.
I never knew about those white benches because they're hollow. Yeah. And like I never knew what the deal was until the 2019 season that I was a sideline reporter. So I'd be down there at halftime. There's not enough time for me to like walk up a tunnel and go find somewhere and then come back out. Because I've run and talked to coach walking into halftime. And so I got like 15 minutes, 20 minutes or whatever, where I'm just like standing out in the cold and all the players are gone. So that's when I can like inch closer to like the sidelines. Like I feel comfortable. I can get a little bit closer over here. Cause I'd always try to like huddle near those warmers, like even like to the side of them, you can feel a little bit. But it was in Chicago during that Bears game where he was counting to 5 or whatever. It was still cold that day. And I sat on the bench for the first time because I saw the propane behind. And I asked, like, the propane tanks are what heat up the hollow, like, plastic bench things. And then there's like little holes all over the place that pushes the heat through. And then on the backside, it's got those little poles that you set your helmet on to heat the helmet. So I know exactly what you're talking about because I went and sat down and I just like sat in I just like rolled back, like the eyes rolled back into my head because I was like, oh my God, this is the most amazing thing. And I looked at one of the equipment guys, it was one of the ball boy dudes, works for the Chiefs, but was sitting next to me. And he was just like, how amazing is this? And I was like, I never knew that this was like this. So then every cold weather game, as soon as they went into halftime, I ran over and sat on the bench. And a couple times I was like, my eyes were closed and I was just so comfortable. And then the players come out, like Coach Heck walks by. I was like, oh my God, I got to get out of here. I'm going to get fired. Get me out of here. But yeah, those things, absolutely amazing. Completely get that.
Looking at the weather report right now, this is from the National Weather Service. I don't mess around. I go right to the source.
Right to the source.
Mostly sunny and cold with a high near 13 on Saturday. Saturday night, partly cloudy with a low around 5 degrees. That's not counting the wind chill.
Nick,
13.
Nick, did you ever see guys? I think I saw it to the Chiefs. Or at least I know I talked to the equipment guy about it because I would see guys like spraying stuff on their arms, and it was hairspray, and it would like somehow it like would like create a layer to keep you a little bit warm. It wasn't like really warm, but did you ever hear guys doing that?
No, man. No,
it was 2 weeks in a row. Last week I said sand in the pants, and you looked like you'd never heard that phrase in your life, and now it's the hairspray. But I would see guys like spraying hairspray. It wasn't like a competitive thing to
like Aquanet, like the 50-ounce thing Aquanet. You just like that.
I was told it was hairspray. Maybe they were just messing with me.
No, it could
They're
be
just making like a joke, but like it
coating. It could be like a liquid coating, like a flexible coating.
Yeah, like if you've ever sprayed hairspray on like your arm, it creates like this little thing. So it made sense afterwards as just like a little thing that you can do to make it better. But it was only the offensive linemen that would do it because their arms were always exposed.
That's a fine. If you either wear sleeves or don't wear
sleeves.
That's
a fine.
That's totally a fine. That's 100% a fine. If I caught somebody on the O-line spraying hairspray on their arms, that's a fine. That's 100% a fine. Absolutely. No way. Not no line room.
I know that
I'm gonna ask Jeff Allen next time I talk to him. I'm gonna ask Jeff Allen because he would have been on that team. That was one of the middle years.
He'd probably know about that. Exactly. No, I don't think so. No, it's and guys can wear those.
Somebody was messing with me years later, and I'm still talking about it now.
Probably
like, you're an idiot. Right? That's not what it was. It's liquid Toradol.
That'd be good. With my shot from before the game.
Like we can't tell him what it is. We don't know about this stuff. Just tell him it's hairspray.
That's a good point. I'm so hopped up on Toradol, the anti-inflammatory, that I probably couldn't feel cold, so it's all good. Probably I miss that feeling. I miss the feeling of you get a Toradol injection before the games, and I get in my right buttocks like Forrest Gump, and I lean. I pull my pants down a little bit. I lean on my left leg, and they'd inject it, and you could feel it go in. And I go, and it lasted a lot Tuesday. It was so good. I like Toradol. Tuesday. And then I found out it's like bad for your liver. And I'm like, oh great, I only like how many games I playing? Like, okay, I only had hundreds of shots. So
it's gonna be the 20 years from now would be the conversation that we're having.
Class action lawsuit, yeah.
You need to sit down with Jeff Allen and Mike DeVito. They talk about that. They had an episode where they just talked about how much drugs they took before each game, and just like talked about that. They just like load you up.
I took drugs after the game too. I remember like asking the doctor, like, hey, can I get like 2 Somas and a Flexerol? Or no, like night before I take a Flexerol, I think it's a muscle relaxer, and an Ambien so I could sleep. And then, by the way, Ambien is a great drug, and I see why people get addicted to it because you can take it and within 5 to 7 minutes you're going to be out like a light.
Or you're not, and then things get really weird.
Well,
don't try to stay up.
You can't force it. Don't try to let it happen.
I was talking about yeah. I had a conversation about Ambien the other day because I remember how the conversation came up, but it was going over to, well, I do, but it's not a football conversation. But no, when we played in London against the Lions, like in like 2015, I'll never forget, like Herbie Topi wrote an article about the way that you treat your body on like a cross country flight, where some people try to go to bed early and do all that. And he said that he talked to like a sleep expert. He said, treat your body like a computer and you want it to crash. So when you wake up, it reboots. So you stay up as like normal, stay up as late as you can, fall asleep. And then when you wake up, your body will be ready to go. So my idiot ass like stayed up as late as I possibly could. And then I was like, I'm about to fall asleep. And then I pop an Ambien, not knowing it was an hour before we landed. And then we land in London and I'm walking through the airport an hour into an Ambien. Like I don't remember any of this. All I know is that I got destroyed on social media when I checked it like 4 hours later because the NFL UK were taking pictures of everybody getting off the plane. They took a picture of Alex Smith and I'm in the background just like, just walking, carrying all my stuff. I was like, what the hell is wrong with this guy? And all I could respond with is, it's a long story. I'm an idiot. But it was because I had taken an Ambien an hour before the flight landed.
An hour before? I mean, I
didn't know it was an hour before. I was trying to stay up.
Or you take off. That's like.
Well, then we landed and it was like 10 o'clock in the morning, whatever time it was. The Royals were playing in the World Series. So it was like, I'm trying to like fight to stay up to watch the Royals game.
On an Ambien?
Yeah.
Amateur. That's a straight amateur move.
All right. This show is going up. It's a very typical outside the trenches for anybody who's listening. All right. Is everybody got their takes out on Tucker's question? We can go to the final blind nail segment.
I just wanted to throw out there, Matt Kissel said he wore a scuba suit, and he got that from Tom Brady. I think who got that from
Derek Thomas.
Drew Bledsoe?
From Drew Bledsoe, yeah. So it's like that the whole quarterback tree wore scuba suits. So
yeah, well, that's what Baker. I saw or someone was wearing. Was it Baker Mayfield?
Could have been.
What he was wearing that like scuba suit with like the no sleeves. If you have that, you're fine. If your core is fine, you're all good. Your arms are free, you'll be just fine.
You see hairspray.
Or not.
It's cool if you're a Chiefs fans going out to Arrowhead, at least one first of all, you're earning your fan card. Again, we talk about it going out to a game on Saturday. So will somebody please at least try, like maybe the day before, if you're going out to the game on like Friday, spray your arms down with some hairspray, go outside, see if it makes any bit. Put one arm in hairspray and the other not. Have like a placebo, like variables here, and walk out and tell me if you notice a difference. And you're like, no, I'm just freaking sticky and I blame you for it. Like, well,
and flammable. Let's not forget. It's fun. As a kid, I used to light hairspray.
How many guys did you see burn their coats on the sidelines standing next to those heaters because they can't tell that they're on fire?
Oh yeah, you love it. It creates more warmth.
It's a straight up open flame, isn't it? Those propane heaters are just
a jet. It's like a jet engine. It looks like a jet engine and it produces that much heat.
Yeah.
It's like afterburners. Yeah, it's awesome. It's the
They're
greatest
amazing.
invention ever.
All right. I got my Santa hat on now because my blind nail segment, if you could, what's the best present that the Chiefs could get this year that happens on the field? Okay.
Okay.
Christmas related. What's the best on-field Christmas gift that the Chiefs could get as they finish up the regular season and go into the playoffs?
Like an airdrop? Like, is that what you're talking about?
I'm not going to give any more like details than that because we can go wherever we want with these answers. I know what mine is, and if you guys want a time to think about it a little bit, I can go first.
Ask the question again.
What's the best Christmas present that the Chiefs could receive? And again, on the field stuff. I'm going to go, and it's next level. If the best present the Chiefs could receive is a healthy Kadarius Toney for the rest of the season.
I was thinking that.
Well,
him or
something else.
Him or McCole.
Don't think out loud. Don't brainstorm out loud your answer. I'll give the rest of my thought process. I'm terrified of Kadarius Toney playing in this game on Saturday. I know he's getting back to healthy. His hamstrings have been an issue. It's going to be cold. So unless Alan Wright, the Chiefs equipment director, has figured out a way to have battery-operated hamstring warmers that he can wear during the game, which I'm sure somebody's invented somewhere with a little battery on them. I don't know if that's legal. I don't want this guy pulling a hamstring trying to play against a bad Seattle team. I know all the games are going to be cold. I know all those things everybody's thinking. I don't care. I don't want him getting hurt in a game like this. So the best Christmas present the Chiefs could receive, in my opinion, is a healthy Kadarius Toney throughout the final stretch of the regular season and the end of the playoffs. I don't think we have properly seen the impact that he can make because he's been banged up and he's dealing with all that stuff. Getting him involved in the game plan with that skill set is different than anything else the Chiefs have on offense. And I think there's a lot of big plays that he is going to make if he's healthy that we are probably not giving enough credit to right now as you talk about what this offense and what this team could do in the playoffs.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. And I think I'm with you where I almost feel in the exact same vein, same concept as getting McCole back, but at the same time, getting enough production from wide receivers. And then, the added bonus of getting running back production and wide receiver yards takes the pressure off of anybody who's slightly banged up to not rush it. Because the worst thing you can do, but every player wants to do it because you want to get back out there. You don't want to get Wally pipped, is get back on the field. So you rush it. So the fact that the Chiefs are winning, there's no pressure from the coaching staff to say, hey, McCole, get healthier or get healthy, rush your thing. So they can take their time. So the best gift, and this is stupid as hell, but just to keep winning so you don't get that pressure to say, hey, we need you now. We need to we need to compress your timetable to now. So that's the best gift is just, and it sounds stupid, but if you lose, then it's like, shit, now McCole's got to come back right now. Now Mr. Toney's got to come back off of rehab where maybe they're not 100%, maybe they're 80%. And then you're screwed during playoffs because then you're getting to a certain spot.
Yeah, for sure. When I was thinking about it, offense was my first reaction. When I think about this, the first thing that came to my head was a reliable MVS. Catches the balls that he should catch. And if he does that, man, I think that the Chiefs are in good position on the offensive side of the ball, because he always makes those outlandish catches that he probably shouldn't catch, but then it's the ones where he's like moving to his right that he double catches and kind of bobbles a little bit, that it's up in the air. But I think in the secondary, I want some turnovers, so I want some ball hawking. I want to see some of these corners get after it and get some turnovers, get some interceptions. A lot of interceptions, right, are time and place, and it comes with all of that stuff. But I'd like to see the Chiefs get more turnovers, turn the ball over a little bit more on the defensive side of the ball, and maybe if the Chiefs offense doesn't turn the ball over very often and it doesn't put the other offense in opportune situations to score, it won't make the defense look as bad. I think we talk about the defense a lot, is like, these past 2 weeks have been really bad, but the Chiefs have given them short fields numerous times against both the Broncos and the Texans. So kind of hard to judge fully the defense when they're playing with the short end of the stick. But I want to see a little bit more turnovers. I think that would be a great gift for the Chiefs.
Good
like
stuff.
Willie Gay turnover. That's epic.
That was a really good.
That was a boss play. All right. We appreciate everybody for hanging out. Please let us know in the comment section or on social media what you think the best Christmas present the Chiefs could receive. And I'll tell you what, you hit us up on social media by telling us what the best present is, by linking to this episode on either YouTube or Apple Podcast. I will send 3 of you the best present you could receive, which is a KCSN hoodie. Thanks to our friends at Charlie Hustle. I will ship that out to you right after Christmas, because you're not going to get, if I ship it the day before, that just asking to get lost. But first 3 people with the best Christmas presents that the Chiefs could receive. We will pick those out. I will contact you via DM and send you a hoodie of your size. Thanks to our friends over at Charlie Hustle. We appreciate everybody for hanging out. Who am I going to surprise? Who's going to take us home? Who's going to take us? And Nick, you take us home on this episode. Again, we appreciate all you for hanging out, listening. We'll have more content getting you ready for Chiefs and Seahawks before Saturday.
These hoodies are so legit. BJ, show them the depth of the actual hood. Like, I think you could wear a helmet. You could wear a football helmet underneath it. Look, it goes right over his Santa hat with plenty of room. So headphones, you could wear over-the-ear headphones in there and be covered. I think it's one of the low-key advantages, and the long white drawstrings of the hoodie. I know I'm selling this hoodie right now, but it really is a phenomenal hoodie. It's
great hoodie.
Very biased. Very biased, but it is the most comfortable hoodie that I own. I'm going to wear it every day anyway because I have freaking 100 of them. But it is, I have like 4 because I stopped doing laundry and just grabbed one. 100.
Feels like
you don't know. You don't know. It's not the same one, everybody. If you see me wearing it, it's like, he wears a lot of dirty hoodies. No.
You're like Steve Jobs.
I got a nice rotation. I got a nice rotation of the same like 5 hoodies that I wear every day.
I wear the same dirty hoodie every day, yes.
I'll get you another one, Tuck.
Yeah.
Get you another one.
No, but I think as you watch the Seahawks game on Saturday, another noon game on a Saturday, so that's a weird time on a short week. Expect there to be some rust. You're at home. It's really tough for this team to play all these games versus high profile opponents, and then you play a team that's 7-7. So expect some sloppiness. Expect that this could be kind of you don't want to give away too much to your preseason or your postseason opponents. But you want to get a W because you're chasing that home field advantage. So it's like this would be a good game to watch. And same concept, man. Win differently. Put stuff on tape.
That's all we got. Hope you all have a fantastic holiday break. Merry Christmas to everybody. Hope you spend time with your loved ones. Tell them how you feel. Appreciate it. We love you all. We appreciate all the support for KC Sports Network. And we will see you all after this game, after Christmas. See you.